My wife hid thousands in debt while I worked overtime, so I divorced quietly. Now she's begging me for financial help I will never give. I'm a 33-year-old guy, and for the longest time, I thought my wife Megan and I had the perfect life. We'd been married for 5 years, together for almost a decade, and everything about our relationship looked solid from the outside. We had a cozy 2-bedroom home, a modest mortgage, and plans to start a family once things stabilized. I had a stable job in it, and Megan handled most of our day-to-day finances. It felt like we were a team each, playing our part toward the same dream. Most nights, I'd come home exhausted after pulling long hours. But seeing her cooking dinner or curled up on the couch with our cat made it all worth it. I told myself the overtime was temporary just until we built enough savings to breathe easier. Megan used to smile and say, "You're doing amazing, babe. I'll handle the rest." And I believed her completely. Still, there were little things, tiny red flags I didn't notice then. A bill that must have gotten lost in the mail. Late fee she brushed off as a glitch in the system. Sometimes. When I'd ask how much we had left in savings, she'd laugh it off. "Don't worry, we're fine." "You think I'd let us sink?" Her tone was playful, but there was always this quick flicker in her eyes. Momentary panic that I ignored. I remember one Saturday morning vividly. I mentioned wanting to start contributing more toward a college fund for our future kids, and she quickly changed the topic to needing a new sofa because our old one ruins the living room aesthetic. I laughed and gave in because she was right, it was old. But that decision, like many others, came with a quiet cost I didn't yet understand. Back then, I thought love meant trust. And trust, I thought, meant not questioning her. If only I knew that silence was the first step toward disaster. It started with small, almost invisible changes, the kind you only notice when you look back and realize how carefully the illusion was maintained. Megan began buying new clothes more often. At first, I didn't think much of it. She'd always been stylish, but suddenly there were designer tags where there used to be thrift finds. "Got them on sale," she'd say, flashing that easy smile that made me feel guilty for even asking. The online orders became frequent, boxers showing up at our doorstep like clockwork. When I joked about her Amazon addiction, she laughed it off and kissed me on the cheek. "You work so hard, babe. Let me have a little fun, okay?" And that was my weakness. I wanted her to have fun. I wanted to be the kind of husband who didn't control or question. One night I asked how our savings were doing. She was scrolling through her phone, barely looking up. "We're fine," she said. "I've got it all under control." I remember her tone, light, but her eyes flicked away too quickly. Something in my chest tightened, but I let it go. I told myself I was just tired from work. A few weeks later, a credit card statement went missing. Megan said she accidentally threw it out with the junk mail. I believed her because why wouldn't I? She'd never given me a reason not to, but the thought lingered. At night, lying awake beside her, I started to wonder if I was missing something right in front of me. Then came the weekend, she asked. If I could work extra hours to cover some house expenses that month. She said property taxes had gone up. It sounded reasonable, and I agreed without question. I didn't know it then. But that was the moment I started financing the cracks in our marriage, paying overtime for a life built on quiet lies. It was a random Tuesday night when everything started to unravel. I got a call from a credit company around 9 p.m., asking if I could verify a missed payment on a card I didn't recognize. I told the rep there must have been a mistake. I only had one card, and it was fully paid off. The rep apologized and read out the name on the account. Megan Thompson, joint holder. Oh, my stomach dropped. I hung up and stared at the living room wall for what felt like an hour. When Megan got home from her girls' dinner, she was cheerful, humming like nothing was wrong. I asked her about the card. She froze for half a second before smiling again. "Oh, that. Just a store card I forgot to mention. It's no big deal." Something in her tone didn't sit right. After she went to shower, I went to her home office, a small corner she called her organization zone. I opened the drawer where she kept bills and paperwork. That's when I saw it. A stack of unopened envelopes, all from credit companies. I started opening them, one by one. My hands shook as I saw the numbers. $5,200 on one. $8,700 on another, $12,000 on a third. Different companies, different cards, all in her name. When she walked back in, I was sitting at the table, surrounded by statements. Her face drained of color. "Megan," I said quietly, "what is this?" She started crying instantly. "It's not what it looks like," she pleaded. I got overwhelmed. "I didn't want to stress you out." She said she'd fix it, that she'd already started paying them off, that it was temporary. I wanted to believe her. I really did. I wrapped my arms around her, even as my chest tightened with betrayal. But later that night, while she slept peacefully beside me, I sat in the dark, staring at the pile of debt, realizing I had no idea who I'd actually married. The next morning, Megan acted like nothing had happened. She made breakfast, kissed me on the cheek, and said, "We'll get through this. I promise." Her voice was soft, trembling just enough to make me feel like the villain for being upset. I wanted to be angry. I should have been angry, but instead, I found myself comforting her while she cried about feeling lost. She said the debt wasn't about greed. It was about stress. "You're always working, always gone," she said, tears pooling in her eyes. I was lonely and shopping just made me feel like I had control. The words hit me like a guilt bomb. Suddenly, I was the problem. My work, my absence, my dedication. I tried to talk about fixing it together. Maybe consolidating the debt, cutting expenses, getting professional help. But she shut that down fast. "No, please," she begged. "I'll handle it myself. I just need time. Don't tell anyone, okay?" It's humiliating. That last line broke me. I didn't want her to feel ashamed, so I agreed to keep it secret. For the next few months, I started covering the minimum payments to protect our credit. Every paycheck I earned went toward patching the financial holes she'd dug. She seemed grateful, overly affectionate even. She'd hug me more, cook my favorite meals, whisper, "You're my rock in bed." It almost felt like the storm had passed, but deep down, something had changed. I noticed how she'd flinch whenever I walked into the room while she was on her laptop. How she'd quickly close tabs or stuff papers into drawers. I told myself it was paranoia, that I was overthinking. But one night, as she fell asleep with her phone clutched tightly in her hand, I caught a glimpse of her lock screen, an unread notification from a name I didn't recognize. And that's when the pit in my stomach came back. Only deeper this time. The name on the screen stuck with me, Darren. Just a first name and an emoji. But it gnawed at me. Megan never mentioned a Darren. I tried to dismiss it, but the thought burned through my chest. The next day, while she was at the gym, I finally gave in to curiosity, or maybe desperation. I unlocked her laptop. She used the same password for everything. The first thing I found was her shopping history. Hundreds of orders, luxury handbags, spa packages, perfume, makeup brands I'd never heard of. It wasn't just a few stress purchases. It was an entirely different life. Then came the messages. Darren wasn't some random friend. He was someone she'd met through a self-care social group online. Their chat was a spiral of emotional intimacy and manipulation, him telling her, "You deserve better than being alone while he works himself to death," and her replying, "He doesn't get me anymore." I felt like my lungs had collapsed. It wasn't physical cheating, not yet, but emotionally. She was halfway out the door. When she came home, I confronted her. I didn't yell. I just held up her phone and asked, "Who's Darren?" She froze, then exploded into anger. "You went through my stuff? That's controlling. Do you realize that?" The shift was immediate. She turned the accusation back on me, her voice trembling but sharp. "He's just a friend. I needed someone to talk to because you're never here." I tried to speak, but she kept cutting me off, her words laced with tears and venom. By the end of it, I was the bad guy again, the overworked, distant husband, making his poor wife feel unloved. That night, she locked herself in the guest room. I lay awake in silence, staring at the ceiling, realizing something terrifying. I'd been funding a fantasy world where she got to play the victim and I was paying the bill. And for the first time, I wondered how deep her lies really went. A few weeks passed where we barely spoke. Megan was distant but calm, almost too calm. She acted as if the argument about Darren had never happened, cooking dinner, making small talk, even suggesting we go on a weekend trip to reconnect. I played along, pretending to move on. But inside, something had shifted. I didn't trust her anymore. Not with my time, my emotions, or most importantly, our finances. Then one afternoon, I got a call from the bank while I was at work. The rep asked if I wanted to discuss the missed payment on your personal loan. My first instinct was confusion. I hadn't taken out any loan. But when she read the details, joint account holders, Megan and Daniel Thompson, my blood ran cold. I asked how much it was for. She said, $25,000, opened 8 months ago. I sat there, staring at the cubicle wall, unable to move. Megan had forged my signature. My mind went blank except for one thought. She's been lying for almost a year. When I confronted her that night, she didn't deny it. She cried, shaking, saying she only did it to help, that the debt collectors were calling nonstop, and she panicked. I just wanted to fix it before you found out, she sobbed. But it wasn't remorse I heard, it was fear. She was terrified of losing the safety net I provided. I told her what she did was fraud, that she could go to jail for it. She went pale, grabbed my hands and whispered, "Please, don't ruin us. I'll make it right, I promise." That night, while she slept, I sat in the kitchen with every credit statement and loan document spread out before me. I realized she wasn't fixing anything. She was sinking deeper, dragging me down with her. So I made a quiet decision. I'd stop trying to save her. From that moment on, I'd start saving myself. After discovering the forged loan, something in me broke. I stopped arguing. I stopped asking questions. I stopped trying to fix things that couldn't be fixed. Megan took my silence as forgiveness, but in reality, it was the sound of me withdrawing every ounce of faith I had left in her. I played my role carefully. I went to work, came home, smiled when she spoke, nodded when she rambled about her new budgeting plan. I even helped her make dinner, pretending we were rebuilding. But behind the scenes, I was quietly opening a new bank account, one she didn't know existed. Every overtime shift I worked, every bonus, every spare cent went straight there. Megan didn't notice. She was too caught up maintaining appearances. She started posting more on social media again, selfies, brunch outings, self-care captions about growth and healing. Meanwhile, I was cataloging every transaction, screenshotting every debt notice, building a timeline of every lie. My lawyer said I needed proof, and now I was collecting it piece by piece at night. She'd cuddle close, whispering, "We'll get through this." "Babe," I'd hold her expressionless, staring into the darkness. I wasn't the same man anymore. I'd gone from protector to strategist, from husband to witness. A few weeks later, she mentioned wanting to start fresh by selling the house and moving somewhere new. That was when I knew she was preparing another escape, another financial reset I'd end up paying for. I smiled and told her it was a great idea. But as I watched her scroll through listings, laughing softly to herself, I realized something chilling. She didn't see the storm coming, the one I was already preparing. Because for once, I wasn't going to be the one left cleaning up her mess. The breaking point came on a gray Thursday afternoon, one of those days that already feels heavy before anything even happens. I got home early from work, drained but hopeful that maybe, somehow, we'd turned a corner. Instead, I opened the mailbox to find 3 envelopes stamped in red. Final notice. They were all in Megan's name. One from a credit card company, one from the personal loan, and one from our joint account, the same one. I'd been slowly funneling my paychecks out of. I tore them open on the kitchen counter, heart pounding. The joint account was overdrawn by nearly $6,000. The payments I'd made were gone. She'd transferred the money out, probably to cover her secret cards. My chest burned as I realized she'd drained our safety net again. When she walked in and saw me holding the letters, her face fell. "You weren't supposed to see those yet," she muttered, yet as if she planned to tell me eventually. I exploded. Months of quiet restraint turned into fury. I shouted about the lies, the forged loan, the way she'd made me believe we were healing while she was still digging deeper. She shouted back, tears mixing with rage. "You're obsessed with money. You don't know what it's like to feel worthless every day while you play hero." The words cut deep, not because they were true, but because they were twisted versions of reality. She'd turned my sacrifices into sins. When the argument ended, there was no apology, just silence. She went upstairs, slammed the bedroom door, and I stood there surrounded by debt notices, my whole life reduced to paper proof of betrayal. That night, I packed a bag. A few clothes, my documents, and my laptop. I couldn't sleep in that house another minute. I left quietly, driving aimlessly until I ended up parked outside my office. Staring at the empty parking lot, for the first time, I realized I was technically homeless and entirely free. That night in my car, with the hum of the streetlights above me and the quiet ticking of the engine, something inside me hardened. I wasn't going to beg, plead, or negotiate anymore. I'd spent years breaking myself to keep a sinking ship afloat. Now I was swimming for shore. The next morning, went straight to my lawyer's office. I handed him the file I'd been quietly building for months. Every transaction, statement, and forged signature. He flipped through the papers, looked up, and said simply, "You're ready." We filed for divorce that same day. No warning. No emotional closure. Just silence, the same silence she'd weaponized against me for months. I moved my things into a small rental near my office. It wasn't much peeling wallpaper or rattling heater, but it was mine. For the first time in years, every dollar I earned stayed in my pocket. I slept on the floor that first night surrounded by boxes, feeling more peace in that emptiness than I'd ever felt in our house full of lies. When Megan was served the divorce papers, the reaction was immediate. My phone lit up with call after call. Then the texts started. "We can fix this. You're overreacting. You're really going to throw everything away over money?" I didn't respond to a single one. She switched from guilt to anger, from pleading to threats, and finally, to silence. Meanwhile, I closed every joint account, rerouted my paychecks, and contacted every creditor to clear my name. I wasn't just leaving her. I was scrubbing her existence from my financial life. The last message she sent before I blocked her was just 6 words. "You'll regret doing this to me." But the truth was, I'd already regretted staying far longer than I should have. Months went by, and the silence between Megan and me became deafening. The world I had known, the one filled with her lies, the pretend smiles, the false promises, slowly faded into nothingness. I spent my time at work, at the gym, or just sitting in my new apartment, wondering how I'd ever let myself live in that world for so long. Slowly, I began rebuilding. I changed my number, started making new connections, and found a sense of purpose that didn't revolve around trying to fix someone who refused to change. Meanwhile, Megan's life seemed to unravel. The lifestyle she'd so desperately clung to crumbled. Her Instagram, once full of carefully curated photos of brunch dates and weekend getaways, began to reflect her true reality: lonely, desperate, and increasingly paranoid. One night, I ran into an old friend of hers who told me, with a mix of pity and disbelief, that Megan had sold most of her designer clothes to pay off her growing debt. "She's barely scraping by," they said, "and she won't ask anyone for help because she's too proud." Part of me felt bad for her, but another part of me felt the cold sting of justice, the kind that doesn't come from revenge, but from natural consequences. She was drowning in the same financial abyss I'd been forced to endure. I wasn't going to be her lifeline anymore. A few weeks later, I got an email. "Megan, subject, please." She was begging for money. "I've learned my lesson, Daniel," it read. "I'm sorry for everything. I'm so ashamed. Please, I need your help just to get back on my feet. I can't do this anymore." I sat with the email open for a long time. For a brief moment, I considered replying. But then I remembered the way she had made me feel, the way she manipulated me, the way she took my love and trust and turned it into a weapon. I felt nothing. I deleted the message and blocked her number, finally at peace. The truth was, I wasn't the one who needed saving anymore. A few weeks after I blocked her, Megan showed up at my office unannounced. I had just finished a long meeting, my mind still spinning from the work, when I saw her standing in the lobby. She looked different. Darker circles under her eyes, her clothes too loose, a certain desperation in her gaze. It hit me instantly that she wasn't the same woman I'd married. That person was long gone when I saw her. All those memories flooded back of late nights working overtime while she spent, of the lies she whispered in the dark. But I didn't let any of that show. I kept my face neutral, like I was looking at a stranger, and walked over. She stood up slowly, eyes glistening with what seemed like an act of bravery or sheer desperation. "Please," she said, voice cracking, "I don't know where to turn. I'm losing everything. You're the only one who can help me." I felt her hand graze mine as she reached for me, and instinctively I pulled back. The look in her eyes, so empty, so broken, was enough to push all the guilt I'd felt for leaving her to the back of my mind. "Megan," I said quietly, my voice steady, "you're right about one thing. You are losing everything. But you didn't just lose me. You lost trust. You lost respect. You lost the only person who ever really cared enough to fight for us." She stumbled back, the words hitting her like a slap. Her face twisted in pain as she grabbed my arm. "Please, I'll fix it. I'll change. I'll do anything." Her voice was frantic now, as if pleading with the person she used to love. But I knew it wasn't real. She wasn't sorry. She was desperate. I stood there for a moment, looking at the woman who had once been my world. Then I shook my head and said softly, "I can't help you anymore, Megan. You made your choices. Now you have to face them." Now she stood frozen, as if waiting for me to change my mind. But I turned and walked away without another word. The finality of it hit me as I reached the door, knowing there was no going back. This was the end. Months have passed since that day. I don't think about Megan much anymore, but sometimes when I'm alone and everything is quiet, I'll reflect on how much my life has changed. I never realized how much emotional weight I'd been carrying until it was gone. The silence is peaceful now, the kind of peace I didn't think I could have after everything she put me through. I've started to rebuild my life from the ground up. My new place is small, but it's mine. I can finally breathe, without the weight of guilt or the constant fear that the next phone call will be another lie, another mess to clean up. It's strange, though, how quickly you adjust to freedom. I've reconnected with old friends, and some days I'll go for long walks, just enjoying the fact that my only responsibility now is to me. One night, sat down and went through some old photos. There was a time I thought I'd never be able to leave her, that I couldn't imagine a life without Megan, but I found something better: peace. No more guilt, no more lies. I've come to understand that I never owed her the life I gave her. It wasn't love I was holding on to. It was obligation. I started focusing on my career again, picking up projects I'd put off for years. The work is fulfilling. I feel something I haven't in a long time: pride. It's a strange feeling when you realize you've been working so hard for the wrong reasons. Now, every accomplishment is for me, and that's enough. I'm not the same person I was when I married her. And that's the thing I don't have to be. I've learned that I deserve more than just enough. I deserve honesty, I deserve respect, and above all, I deserve peace. The last time I heard from Megan was a message that came a few weeks ago. She was asking if I could help with a loan again. I didn't even read the rest. I knew what I had to do. I deleted it and blocked her number for good. I'm done trying to save someone who doesn't want to save themselves. I've moved on, and I'm better for it. I'm not bitter. I'm not angry. I am just free.